The literature produced in the southern colonies was, for the most part, descriptive and factual, concerned in some fashion with the land itself, less prospective than the Puritans of New England. The writers of the South turned their attention to the world outside their doors. It all began as early 1608 when the explorer Captain John Smith published his pamphlet, A True Relation of Occurrences and Accidents in Virginia. It includes the story of his rescue by Pocahontas. Colonial authors expressed themselves in poetry and prose, satire, and invective essays in pamphlets. Noteworthy published works of the period include the translation into heroic couplets of Ovid's Metamorphoses by George Sandys, Jamestown, treasurer and director of the Industry and Agriculture, a humorous prose account of colonial life interspersed with lively poetry. Southern black writers were extremely important in this period of time. They embellished conventional poem forms by adding features that reflected black life in the South. It was illegal for slaves to learn how to read and write, but when there is a will, there is a way. Lucy Terry Prince was brought to Rhode Island as a slave from Africa as an infant. She composed verse 5 about a 1746 incident. It was published in 1855. It is considered the oldest known work of literature by an African American. Phyllis Wheatley, she was sold into slavery at the age of 7. The Wheatley family taught her to read and write and encouraged her poetry when they saw her talent. Her poems were about religious and moral. No one believed that a black person could write those poems, so her book came with preface where 70 men testify her work. Jupiter Hammond, slave of Henry Lord, Long Island, New York. His poem, An Evening's Thought, 88 lines, was published on December 25, 1760, making it the first poem published by an American of African descent. Now, whether it is right and lawful in the sight of God for them to make slaves of us or not, I am certain that while we are slaves, it is our duty to obey our masters in all their lawful commands, and might then, unless we are bid to do that which we know to be sin or forbidden in God's word. Not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. All that we have to do to mind is our own duty. If God has put us in bad circumstances, that is not our fault, and He will not punish us for it. They must answer to God for it. Nothing will serve as an excuse to us for not doing our duty or stealing from our masters. The same God will judge both them and us. Let me beg for you then, for the sake of your own good and happiness, in time and for eternity, and for the sake of your poor brethren who are still in bondage. And may God bless you and bring you to His kingdom for Christ's sake.
The rowdy satirical poem "The Southwick Factor" satirized the colony of Maryland, where the author, an Englishman named Ebenezer Cook, had unsuccessfully tried his hand as a tobacco merchant. Cook exposed the crude ways of the colony with high-spirited humor, and accused the colonies of cheating him. The poem concludes with an exaggerated curse: "May wrath divine then lay those regions waste, where's no man's faithful nor a woman chaste." The Reverend Alexander Whittaker, one of the early propagandists, wrote an appealing description of his new habitat and published it in London as Good News from Virginia. William Byrd is best known today for his lively history of the dividing line, a diary of a 1729 trip of some weeks and 960 kilometers into the interior to survey the line dividing the neighboring colonies of Virginia and North Carolina. The quick impression that vast wilderness Indians, half savage whites, wild bats, and every sort of difficulty made on this civilized gentleman form a uniquely American and very southern book. He ridiculized the first Virginia colonies, about 100 men, most of them reprobates of good families, and jokes that at Jamestown, like true Englishmen, they built a church that cost no more than £50 and a tavern that cost 500. Bird's writings are, are fine examples of the keen interest Southerners took in the material world, the land, Indians, plants, animals, and settlers. Robert Beverly, another wealthy planter and author of the history and present state of Virginia, records the history of the Virginia colony in a human and vigorous style. Like Byrd, he admired the Indians and remarked on the strange European superstition about Virginia. For example, the belief that the country turns all people black who go there. In of the great hospitality of Southerners, a thread maintaining today. Initial English attempts at colonization were disasters. The first colony was set up in 1585 at Roanoke, off the coast of North Carolina. All its colonies disappeared, and to this day, legends are told about blue-eyed Croatian Indians of the area. The second colony was more permanent. Jamestown, established in 1607, it endured starvation, brutality, and misrule. However, the literature of the people paints America in glowing colors as the land of riches and opportunity. Accounts of the colonization become word and over. The exploration of Roanoke was carefully recorded by Thomas Harrod in a brief and true report of the newfound land of Virginia. Harrod's book was quickly translated into Latin, French, and German. The text and pictures were made into engravings and widely republished for over 200 years. Similar in tone to History of the Dividing Line of Colonel William Byrd were his diaries of a progress to the mines and a journey to the land of Eden in North Carolina. South Carolina a home for the industrious immigrant, this pamphlet was designed to entice immigrants to the state.